Hey guys, today we're going to look at the Weefine WFH-07 underwater housing for mobile phones. That's a mouthful. You have no idea how many practice reps it took me to say that without any problems. This is a fairly large and chunky beast compared to a GoPro, quite significantly larger. Even compared to my iPhone 15 Plus, you can see the size difference. This is large. So why would you want to carry this large and chunky beast compared to a small action camera? Really simple. Size does matter, besides the obvious anyway. And by obvious, I mean fins, not whatever it is that you're thinking. Get your mind out of the gutter, people. We're not that kind of show. Not yet anyway. Anyway, where was I? I was talking about size. Action cameras are really very convenient and easy to carry, but their small size poses certain limitations in terms of how well they handle low light and in terms of the quality of the optics. Mobile phone cameras take really good videos these days. And in addition, they're also optimized for taking really good pictures, which is something your action camera cannot do. So if your goal is to take photos and videos, a housing for your mobile phone will do a much better job than an action cam. The housing comes in a nice rigid plastic case. Open up the case, and you have the housing on one side, which we shall set aside. And you have a bunch of accessories in the other. Let's open up this neat little box and see what's inside. You have a spare shutter, you have a wrist lanyard, a USB cable, spare caps for the USB charging socket inside the case, silicone grease, and a spare O-ring for the case. You also have a paper envelope. Inside, you have a user manual and a warranty card. And you have a bunch of stickers. And now let's look at the case itself. The front is made of metal and so has a nice heft and feeling of solidity to it. There's a flat port on the side for your camera's lenses. The rear is made of polycarbonate and has a large window through which you can see your camera screen. The Weefine housing relies on physical buttons to operate the phone inside. Here you have the vacuum system. This is a control dial like on proper cameras. There is also a physical shutter button. On top of the camera you have a cold shoe. The back of the camera has a menu button and a 4-way control pad. The locking mechanism has a safety button. This is to prevent you from accidentally opening the housing underwater with catastrophic consequences. This QR code lets you download the Divevolk app, which is the camera app you will need to use with this housing. This unit houses the electronics, which map the input from the buttons to corresponding actions on the Divevolk camera app. And right there is a USB charging port with a cover, and a lot of spares in your accessories box. One cool thing about this housing, you don't need any special inserts that are specific to your phone model. You can fit pretty much any phone inside. The first thing I'm going to do is open up the case. Then I'm going to place my phone inside, making sure it's seated properly. Once that is done, I'll launch the Divevolk app and I'll close the case. The next step, and this is critical towards ensuring the safety of your phone, is to vacuum seal the housing. First, I'm going to open the vacuum by pressing the red button and sliding the blue lever up. Then I will turn on the housing in case it's not on already. You'll see the green light flashing and your phone will display the message housing connected. At that point, you will be guided through the button menus and what they do, which is great if you kind of have forgotten. And if you remember what it is, it's a bit tedious, but hey, whatever. Once that is done, you get a message saying press any button to continue. Once you do that, it'll ask you if you want to initiate the vacuum process, which you do. I confirm yes by pressing the shutter button, and it starts to pressurize the housing.
Once the vacuum is established, you need to close the vacuum valve by pressing the big button at the front. Now the housing is almost ready to go. You have to confirm that you've closed the valve button. You get a reminder about depressurizing procedures. Once you confirm that, you get a 3-minute countdown meant to ensure that the seal actually holds. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to cancel the countdown. I will not suggest that you do so. And you're done and ready to shoot. Let me darken the video a little to make the phone screen easier to see. Towards the right of the screen, you see a bunch of menus that let you control the camera. The first one lets you toggle between photo and video mode. The next one lets you pick between the lenses, wide, ultra wide, and face, which I assume is the front camera. Then you have a bunch of filters you can apply. Then you have mode, which lets you select the resolution, whether you want to shoot HD or 4K, as well as the frame rate at which you want to shoot, and whether you want HDR or not. Some of these features do require subscription, however. Zoom, surprisingly, lets you zoom. The adjust menu brings up a bunch of settings that you can control, such as exposure compensation, focusing point, white balance, and ISO. The last option is settings. It lets you do a bunch of things. One of the coolest features of this housing is that it has a full-featured dive computer built in. And you can overlay some of that information from the dive computer onto your video recording, such as date, depth, temperature, and even a logo if you so desire. Lets you set up a frame, brings up a grid display. You can also set a timer on the camera, switch on the torch, adjust what the control wheel in the front does, check a preview of the images you've taken, and so on and so forth. The main menu of the app lets you toggle between the camera, the gallery for viewing your photos and images, the dive computer settings page, some games in case you want to play them on a safety stop, and a few other controls. Let's look at the dive computer settings, because that's a really unique feature of this housing. As a default, you get the gauge mode, which lets you see your depth and time. Once you pay the subscription, you get access to the full-featured dive computer. There you can set the gases, you can adjust the conservatism, you can decide whether the depth of your last stop, you can set the end of dive delay. In other words, how long after surfacing does the computer end the dive. You can also set the air units, and you can also choose toggle between metric and imperial. And you can see the battery status at the bottom of the screen, both for your phone and the housing. Pretty cool, huh? You also have a review of hand signals in case you've forgotten. And you also have an emergency assistance plan or an emergency action plan. It's kind of useful to have in general in case something goes wrong. After the dive, making sure that the housing is clean and dry, the first thing you do is depressurize it. Once you open the seal and depressurize the housing, the app will ask you if you want to reseal it. In this case, because the dive is over, you do not want to do that. At that point, the housing does nothing. You can now press the red safety button and turn the dial to open up your housing and then safely extract your phone from inside. Close up the housing, turn it over and close the vacuum valve. And then switch the housing off. A couple of quirks about the housing, starting with the latch. This latch actually opens to the right and closes to the left. That's actually the opposite of what most of us are used to, which is right tight, left loose. This can lead to a little bit of fumbling sometimes. But again, this is not time or mission critical, right? So it's not the end of the world if it does take you a little bit longer to kind of figure it out. The other issue is that depending on your phone model and if you're not careful, the volume button can get pushed against the mounting struts, and that can cause your camera to continuously trying to toggle the volume while it's inside. So you have to be a bit careful in how you insert the phone into the housing. You have to make sure you sort of place it in gently, like so. Okay, this seemed to have worked.
The third issue, and this is going to be a bit of a rant to admit, is the Divevolk software. Now, let me be the first to admit, it's a pretty cool piece of software. The fact that it has a computer built in, the fact that you can overlay this information onto your recordings makes it quite cool. But requiring me to pay in order to use my camera's 4K capabilities, that's nonsense, guys. What the hell? On general principle, that offends me. That being said, the other features are good enough that I'm probably going to just pony up and buy the subscription, but I'll be grumbling about it all the time. For me, in the end, the deciding factor is the built-in computer in this. The fact that you can take this and have a piece of photography or videography kit and have a backup dive computer makes it absolutely ace in my book. Highly recommended.